a passionate instigator and dynamic problem solver. Dr. Kevin Ross Emery, the host of the Dr. Kevin Radio Show, will be taking you outside the box, behind the curtain, and identifying the load of BS we are fed every day. And now, Dr. Kevin.
Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Kevin Show here on Ohm Times, where we're changing the world, wait for it, one ohm at a time. And here on the third Thursday of the month, as we do on all third Thursdays of the month, we share planetary influences with you. Our in-house astrologer, Rob Stewart from innercenter.org, comes and lets us know what are the planets and the stars all doing in the sky and how is it going to affect us. Here on the Dr. Kevin Show, we always like to remind you, never give your power away to anything. Whether it's a psychic, it's an astrologer, it's a medical doctor, it's an Indian chief, whoever, you always want to take your own power. That being said, we are much more powerful when we have more information with which to make better decisions. And that's what our monthly panel planetary influence segment is all about. It's Rob coming in and letting us know what kind of energies are being supported and which kind of energies may be a little bit of a rougher ride. It doesn't mean to not do something, but it may help you make a decision, time something, or have some insight. I have often found after a planetary influence and knowing that there is certain planets coming together that might lead to more conflict in relationships or might be more of people aren't hearing what you're saying because of the way two planets are dancing together, that when I keep that in mind and I see it start to happen, I can take quicker action. I can go, oh, yeah, people are not hearing. I can choose to make different choices, approach different situations differently. I think that people for a long time, the majority of people, have underplayed, evaluated the importance that astrology can play as another source with which to get information so you can make the best decisions. It's either something that's beside the comics in the newspaper about somebody's sun sign, which is basically like saying, well, because you all have blonde hair, these things are true. Or because you all have blue eyes, this thing is true. And, you know, what is your gender, your height, your size, your cultural reference, your age is irrelevant because it's all about what color are your eyes. And that's what it is when you say it's all about what my sun sign is. Your eyes are just one part of you. It's what is the soul behind the eyes. When you look deeply into astrology and you understand the essence of people and how it all comes to work together, you find out what is the soul or the energy behind that sun sign. We look at the moon sign, we look at the rising sign, we look at where the planets are scattered across your journey, your chart, your life, and how it's going to more very specifically affect the energies in your relationships, in your career, your relationships with money, with family, with siblings, with the world, and even your relationship with yourself and your relationship with spirit. So, you know, a lot of times people like to come into the astrology show so they can, you know, get a little quickie, woo, yeah, that's the astrology. But people who seriously understand astrology and take it as one of the tools to which build a better life with, understand that there are many levels of layers and depth that you can take and really have astrology be something that is one of your strong tools with which to create your path and have the best journey you can beyond it. Again, our in-house astrologer here at the Dr. Kevin Show is Rob Stewart from innercenter.org. I will be bringing Rob in just a moment. I know he's there waiting to see if I will ever shut up, and I know he knows I won't. But I do take a deep breath and let him speak. And so he is going to be explaining what's going on in the skies. If you have never had your astrology chart done or knows what that means to you, then you can certainly go to Rob at innercenter.org and you can, Talk to him about getting a chart, understanding, see, how does this apply? How do I use that information? We are all about empowering you here on the Dr. Kevin Show, and astrology is a great way to feel and be more empowered in your life. Rob, I'm ready to take a breath. How are you, and what's going on with you these days?
I'm doing well, Dr. Kevin. Thanks. I'm doing well. It's a great introduction, and I particularly with regards to not giving your power away to anyone, no matter who they are, what they are, or what information they have. Astrology is really just about working with the energies in life in a way that it's easier to swim with the currents than against it. And also, I just want to throw in that I feel that astrology is really a means to validate your own intuitive knowing, your own, your feelings about things. And so if astrology ever goes sort of against your what you think and what you feel, then don't then don't listen to it. Trust the truth in your life.
Well, one of the things that I find, and I don't want to over-engage in this conversation. I don't know how many things we have on the agenda that you need to go over. Some months are more packed with lots of aspects and lots of movements than others. But I do want people to understand that it has been my experience, because I first started learning about astrology and working with astrology from a personal perspective, and I studied with my first astrologer in 1977. Were you even born yet, Rob?
No, not quite yet.
Yeah. 1977. As I said to one of my clients the other day, dirt looks at me like its older brother. So that being said, is what I have found through the years working with lots of astrologers, working with astrology myself, on all sorts of different levels, is that astrology, that when people go, oh, well, that astrology was wrong, it's because they looked at one piece in a puzzle and didn't put all the puzzle pieces, or didn't know how to put all the puzzle pieces together. Yes, a single planet in a single house can mean this, but then you have to look at, but what aspects it? Where is it in relativity to everything else? What are the other players? Is that a planet that brings a lot of punch and power because of your chart to your chart and has a louder voice? Or is it one that is in what we call a detriment and gives you a softer voice, a quieter voice? So yes, it means that, but it might not be the louder voice that you hear. It may be a voice that only comes out at certain times or in certain ways. So oftentimes when people go, oh yeah, well, my astrology is all wrong, blah, blah, they usually, if they're lucky, they may know their sun sign and or their moon sign. Occasionally they'll know their ascendant, and they're clueless to everything else, and then they're making this grand statement, which I hate to say to them, you're actually kind of really being ignorant. It's like you read the first chapter of a book and you've decided that the whole book was trash because you didn't like the first chapter, but that's okay, Ignorance has its place as well. But I think it's important for people to understand that you may look at astrology and say, well, the astrology says this, but how deeply have you looked into it? And that's why I agree with you. You should always trust your own intuitive, your own instinct, but don't then say, see, my astrology chart is wrong, or my astrologer was wrong. I don't have the depth of understanding to look at the more complicated picture. And if I was working with a skilled astrologer or somebody who is skilled at doing astrology, they might have actually come to the same conclusion with looking at my astrology chart that my intuitive came to, but we didn't look deep enough. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know a lot of people that are skeptical of astrology and they haven't looked into it, but I don't know many people that have looked into astrology in a deep way and are still skeptical. I used to be a skeptic as well, but once you dig into these things, it's really quite amazing. I've done hundreds of charts for people, and I don't know them, I've never met them, but the chart speaks to some real key aspects of life. And it's a really fascinating and powerful tool in life for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, because I don't think I've really ever mentioned it when you're on the show, not for any other reason that again, you can say at any point, Dr. Kevin, I got a lot to cover. Please shut up. That's okay. Because next month, September, I'm actually doing a self-mastery course through your astrology chart. And I don't teach like regular astrology classes. I don't put myself out as an astrologer. If you guys want a chart done, go to Rob. Don't come to me. Go to Rob. Rob will do your chart. He'll give you all the basics. But when people are on a path of self-mastery and they really want to understand it from a spiritual overall arc of the soul perspective, then I'll do self-mastery classes that are underpinned by tarot or astrology or psychic development and awakening. That's the underpinning language, but it's always a self-mastery class. So come September, the class is sold out. I'm not trying to find any new students. In fact, I got a waiting list for this class because I'll only do a small number because it's very intense. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I mentioned that I was doing that to you, did I? That I was doing that.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, astrology is, to me, it's been one of the best tools to really align with purpose. And it's really been helpful in a lot of ways that other things haven't kind of fallen short. So yeah, it's a really powerful tool, and that's great that you're offering that course. It sounds like a really good one.
Yeah. Now, do you ever offer just like astrology 101 classes for people, or do you just stick it? Because I know you have a lot of other things you do. You do cardology, you do hypnotism. Is there anything? But do you ever run like, hey, let's talk about your sun sign? You know what I'm saying? Like astrology 101 classes.
Yeah, so just recently I've offered there's some classes offered locally, but at some point I do want to offer them online and, reach a wider audience and stuff. I really do enjoy teaching this subject because I love it so much, and it's so useful, and astrology is a lot easier than I think people realize. Once you get the basics of it, and there's so much information, and it's tremendously powerful.
Yeah, well, you have to keep us informed. Whenever you come on, if you've got an astrology class, whether it's local or whether it's something you're offering online, don't ever be afraid to talk about it or say, hey, Dr. Kev, I just wanted to let you and your listeners know that I'm doing this because, again, I think the more that people are more self-aware, more enlightened, more actively trying to be their best selves, and I think that astrology can be a good pathway to that, the more good we're doing in the world. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I'll keep people updated on all that stuff for sure.
Yeah. So, speaking of it, what's going on?
Yeah.
What exciting things do we have to look forward to, Rob?
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, we'll get a little bit in. I know the break's coming up here. So the sun is moving into Virgo on August 22nd. The sun is basically, it's really our sole purpose. Wherever the sun is in the chart, when you participate in that energy and you express your personal expression through that area, wherever the sun is in the chart, you find vitality, there's energy, there's strength. You can really shine in that area of life, wherever the sun is in the chart. And oftentimes it involves some challenges. Oftentimes people say, well, I'm an Aries, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Gemini, etc. But the reality is, the way I see it, that the sun speaks to our soul purpose, our soul mission, and oftentimes it involves great challenge to shine in those ways. which is totally reverse to what is sort of taught in the horoscopes and things at times. But so as the sun is transiting through the sky, through the year, we have the opportunity to express ourselves with those energetic themes. For instance, the sun was in Leo over the past month, and that's a time for really self-expression. The sun is in its own sign, so the sun is always about self-expression. But in the sign of Leo, there's, it's doubled. It's a time to really share your heart with the world, shine your unique voice, to leave your stamp on the world, to be heard, to stand in your opinion and share that opinion from your heart in a courageous and loving way. These are all Leoian energies, if that's the right word for that. But the sun enters Virgo on August 22nd, and Virgo's about being a humble team player. It's about improving things. It's about helping the world be a better place. It's about learning to be of service. It's also about healing work as well and connection with the earth, focusing on duties, responsibilities, daily focus, daily work, setting routines, getting down to the details, sacrificing ego concerns to be useful. Virgo essentially asks us, are we being useful? How can I improve myself? That's a really big Virgo thing, is self-improvement. And so these are some of the big themes that we have the opportunity to really embrace as the sun transits the constellation of Virgo from August 22nd for the next month. And, Virgo really pressures us to change. It pressures us to analyze ourselves, to make discernments in life, to make choices, to really be practical, logical, analytical, and to find ways of being useful in life, not only useful for ourselves and the sort of self-improvement, but for the collective as well. There's something also about perfecting one's skills in the sign of Virgo. Like I said earlier, looking at the details, what needs to be improved, and really a focus on the daily routine, the day-to-day tasks, these types of things. You can really thrive and shine in life in these areas, and even particularly when it's focused on creating health, creating well-being. This is a great time to double down on those routines that really are helpful for your own health, whether that's more exercise or daily yoga or eating well or whatever it is, but diving into those details and improving things. This is a great time for all that. It's not a time for laziness. Virgo and laziness just don't go well together. So this is a time to get practical, to get, the nose against the grindstone, and just get things done and step into that competence.
Okay. There's the sound of our first break, and we'll be right back to hear more from Rob Stewart from InnerCenter.org.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Coping-19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
If you're feeling increasingly lonely right now, you're not alone. It's totally normal. Even though we may not be able to get together in person, connecting virtually with friends and family still gives you a chance to interact with people and may help raise your spirits. Join a virtual book club, set up group text chats, or online video coffee breaks with coworkers.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to Planetary Influences Thursday with Rob Stewart from innercenter.org here on the Dr. Kevin Show. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can do so by calling in at 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. So if you have any astrology questions or questions of any kind for Rob or I, feel free to call in. If I don't like the question, I'll make Rob answer it. Right, Rob?
Yeah, all right. Sounds
good. Hey. So I wanted to comment because I suspect that you were probably getting ready to move to the next aspect because I don't know how much. Yeah. So I always look at Leo as it is finding what I would call our unique face of God, our individual face of God. And then in Virgo, it's how do we practically apply that face of God into the world?
Right on. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. I mean, there's that rhythm. But anyways, I just wanted to, that's how I've explained it in the past. I just thought I'd throw my 2 cents in because I just can't keep my mouth shut. So go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of saying it, so yeah, that's beautiful. And, one of the things about Virgo, everything has the higher sides and the lower sides, and in Virgo, there is this potential for self-criticism and the need to be perfect. And of course, perfection is impossible in one manner of speaking. On the other hand, we're all perfect already. So what is there to be improved? These sort of different views on all of that. But so the shadow side, I guess you'd say, of Virgo is the need for perfection and self-criticism because we feel less than we should be, or that we could be better in some way, and this sort of dissecting oneself. And so that's something to just be aware of. Of course, there's a real use for constructive self-criticism to improve things. But then it's a slippery slope, of course. So that's just something to be aware of. And, avoiding that trap of continuous self-sacrifice is another thing that can be a Virgo, just something to be mindful as the sun transits Virgo. So I mean, that's the sun entering Virgo. And there's, it's an interesting, so the next few months are certainly, there's a lot of change occurring on the astrology. There's astrology that brings about change and shakeups and letting go of the past and embracing the new. On August 20th, which I believe is just tomorrow, Uranus goes retrograde. And Uranus is all about freedom from old conditioning, freedom from the past, freedom. It really shakes things up. And with Uranus going retrograde, there's this sense of, looking at areas of life where we need to make changes and we need to let go of old things. It's really helping us embrace change. And it shakes up what no longer works. That's a big Uranus thing, particularly in Uranus retrograde. And so it's just a time to let go of routine. We all might feel a bit, the need for more freedom, for some space in different areas of life, depending on where Uranus is in the chart. So Uranus is stationed retrograde tomorrow, in fact. And so over this past week, a week ago from now, and then until another week, there's a lot of Uranian themes right now because Uranus is stationed retrograde. And so, this need for change, this need for shakeup, this is a really big theme right now. And another thing that's been a theme for this whole year is that Uranus is squaring Saturn. And Uranus represents the new. It represents freedom from the old. And Saturn is the old. Saturn is structure. It's authority. It's all these structures of discipline and this three-dimensional world. There's all this three-dimensionality with Saturn. It sort of forces us to be disciplined and to be responsible. And it's that sort of parent that's being sure that we're being mature, being responsible. And these two planets, a need for freedom and this sort of authority structures are in a square this whole year and even into next year. And so this whole year, there's these themes of the new versus the old, the moving forward versus, but we have to do it responsibly. This is an enormous theme for this whole year. And so, there's just these huge themes over these next few months of awakening, waking up, letting go of old conditioning that no longer is helping, but yet being mature, being responsible, figuring out how to balance, your own freedom with taking responsibility and being disciplined in life. Uranus, again, because there's this huge Uranian theme here over these next few months, particularly because we have a full moon in Aquarius, which we'll talk about in a moment. But it's a pretty sudden change. Sudden change is a big theme. Sort of like the veil becoming thinner, and maybe more truths are going to enter on the big stage and shaking things up. Uranus is going retrograde just 2 days before this full moon, which is a really important theme over here for the next couple months. So before I go into that full moon, Dr. Kevin, any thoughts about this retrograde Uranus that we're experiencing?
Well, I really feel that the retrograde Uranus is, Uranus itself being all about unpredictability, and now it's going backwards. It speaks to me of a learning from the places where we gave in or gave up instead of taking the risk and initiating change. When Uranus goes retrograde, I always feel like there is an aspect of it where we may review the places to not to beat ourselves up, but to understand that we didn't ride a flow. We stayed comfortable with the known. Does that make sense when I say it that way, Rob?
Absolutely, and I fully agree. I think that's a great example. Reviewing areas of life where perhaps we gave up a bit of our own, let go of our own clarity to fit in. Uranus is a real big, issues that come up with Uranus is fitting in. That's that type of energy. It's a really big theme with Uranus, for sure.
And so this may be a time when we second guess during this retrograde, or we may go back and we may choose to do something to change a choice we made because we realized we made it for the wrong reasons. We made it because what would the neighbors think, or what would my spouse think, or that's too risky, or that's not who I am. Well, the funny thing is if you do it, it is who you are. Uranus is like, what do you mean that's not who you are? It can be who you are if you want it to be. You know?
Right.
So,
That's right.
you know, so I think Uranus challenges us to knock away our internal limiting belief systems.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so with a retrograde, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So with this going back, we're going back, and we may write what we have realized was a mistake, a choice that was a mistake because we were doing it for the wrong reasons. I think
right
that and now remind me, what sign is Uranus in right now?
It's in Taurus. So, Taurus, you're right. There's there's energies of letting go of old conditioning and looking at areas where, like you said, righting a wrong or realigning with our unique individuality in some way. And so this has been a big theme all year with Uranus squaring Saturn. There's the pressure to conform, and there's the pressure to be unique in your own individual way. And so this is a really big theme for the whole year, and it's really highlighted with this full moon in Aquarius that's on August 22nd here on Sunday. And this is a really unique full moon. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Kevin.
Well, no, I'm just looking. I mean, when you look at it, because Uranus is not happy in Taurus. It doesn't. Taurus is all about comfortable stability, predictability. Taurus doesn't like being uncomfortable, and Uranus is all about, discomfort is the only way forward. Come on, let's go. Taurus is kind of like, I don't know about this. This sounds scary. And
That's
then,
right.
So go on to the full moon. But I just, that's why I was trying to say, I know that there's something about the placement we needed to talk about, and that, to me, that was it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and that's a really good point. I mean, this is, Uranus is in Taurus. Taurus, it also is related to financial stability, financial markets, food security, these sort of basic securities. And so, there's definitely shakeups that are occurring, certainly in the financial sector. We'll talk about that. We'll get to that here. But there's just unexpected change and freedom from some old ways of thinking, I guess you could say. But with it comes that unexpectedness, there's sort of shakeups, and like you said, it's in Taurus, so it's in a place, it's an energetic space where we feel a bit, this is a bit uncomfortable, for sure. And this full moon aligns with all this, because the full moon is in the sign of Aquarius, and this is the second full moon that we've had in Aquarius in the past month. This is a really rare thing. The full moon we had, it was in late July. It was at the 1st degree of Aquarius, and this full moon is at the 29th degree of Aquarius. And it's tremendously rare to have a full moon in the same sign within a month. And so full moons are about completion. They're about closure. It's about, full moons sort of shine a light on truths. At a full moon, you can see in the dark a little bit more. Might be, a bit uneasy seeing in the dark at times, and it brings up some emotional things, as full moons do. But Aquarius, a full moon in Aquarius, is about shaking things up. It's really sort of, over this past month, it's sort of activated this Uranus and Taurus and all these things that Dr. Kevin and I have been speaking about. And so, Uranus, some more themes: freedom, human rights, all these different things. And this full moon is at the 29th degree in Aquarius, and that's the anaretic degree. And that's the last degree in a sign. And sometimes that 29th degree can bring about some of the less positive aspects of that sign. And in the sign of Aquarius, sometimes that can represent like a cold detachment or cold detached technology, things of that nature can certainly be a theme with regards to 29th degree in Aquarius. But yeah, this is a really big time right now with this Uranus just going retrograde. It's in Taurus. We have this full moon in Aquarius. There's some disruptive energy here. And in the sign of Aquarius, it does have to do with technology. Maybe there's some sudden disruptions in technology, whether it's internet outages or cyber type of attacks or those types of things, where there's sort of technological changes that are occurring. This is something to be aware of, but there's something also about breaking down the old things and breaking down and breaking through. These are some really big themes.
Well, and no matter how you look at it, if you were to choose a sign and say this would be a sign that could definitely be representative of the old guard, you would definitely think Taurus would be right up at the top of the list as one of the signs that would represent like the old structure of the world, the solid, right?
Yeah, Taurus,
and we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Capricorn, yep.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Vox Novus, the new voice. Vox Novus, the new dimension. Vox Novus, thought and movement leaders who will share from their experience and offer tools to help us navigate our rapidly changing world. My name is Victor Furman. Join me every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio for Vox Novus, the new voice.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the last segment of the Dr. Kevin Show. If you would like to participate in the conversation, you may do so by calling 202-570-7057. That's 202-570-7057. Tonight, this week, we are doing Planetary Influences with Rob Stewart from InnerCenter.org. And we are seeing what's going on in the skies. Rob, we were talking about that full moon in Aquarius. We were talking about a Uranus, an unhappy Uranus going retrograde in Taurus. I mean, when Uranus goes into Taurus, it's trying to run to get out on the other side of it. It's much happier in Gemini than it is in Taurus. And now it's being turned backwards to go deeper into Taurus. So you got to figure Uranus is a little grumpy. Uranus grumpy, and this 29-degree full moon Aquarius is also a little grumpy. But the interesting thing is, from my perspective, is that they're going to be grumpy in ways that are harmonious and supportive to them becoming really 2.5 grumpy old men putting those energies together. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with regarding like grumpy, I don't know. I mean, it's basically just shakeups. That's the thing is, sometimes, I think we interpret shakeups as it gets us a bit grumpy at times. But sometimes looking back, you're like, wow, thank God for that shakeup I had. So, it's as I know you are also aware, it's hard to put labels or good and bad on these types of things because I don't see it that way. But it certainly speaks to shakeups. That's a really big theme. And in the sign of Taurus, like I said, that there's financial. That's the financial sort of things, these sort of stability, security, food, even things like food, and agriculture. And also, Taurus is, it's about earth as well. So maybe there's some changes in, things like drought or flood or things like that, some sort of sudden changes with regards to the earth as well. These are some of the ways it can show up. But drought really could be a big one. There is one that comes to mind.
And see, and you just proved my point. Drought is definitely an issue, I would say, of Mother Nature being grumpy.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Fair enough.
And you say grumpy like it's a bad thing. Grumpy often accompanies change. It's just that it's the uncomfortableness of it. It's the uncomfortableness. And I chose the word grumpy because in this case, with it, again, being in the area of Taurus, it is going to be talking sometimes about institutions or things that we've looked at and things like this. And as you said earlier, it's kind of like the new guard, old guard face-off. The Uranus indifference to, it's always been done that way, to which Uranus says, well, then it's time to change, huh? And, versus that full moon. So I'm going to let you continue. But that was kind of what is, I see these as, at the very least, harmonious. I know you don't like the word grumpy, but harmonious grumpiness. And again,
yeah.
I don't mean grumpy is necessarily a bad thing. It's just a thing.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I mean, this is the thing. If somehow we were able to be told before we were born, that's going to involve this really painful process or like uncomfortable process of going through the birth canal, and not only for yourself but the mother, of course. There might be some like, ooh, wow, that seems pretty intense. I'm not saying anything with regard to this is that it's a metaphor for that, but perhaps it is in some manner of speaking, in that, through these shakeups, through change, shaking up the old routine, if you're in the womb, pretty nice. And the thought of shaking that up might not be so pleasant, it might be a bit grumpy, like you said. So, but of course, who regrets being born into this world rather than being in the womb for indefinite period of time? Anyways, so let's see here. So Jupiter in this full moon, Jupiter's conjunct the moon during this full moon, and this is a really nice aspect. Jupiter is, it brings blessings, it brings expansion. So there's these real themes, although, of course, there can be grumpy reactions to shakeups. There's some real opportunities here to connect with like-minded people. Full moon in Aquarius. Finding your tribe, full moon in Aquarius. Also justice. Justice is a big theme for Jupiter. Also truth, expanded information, expanded consciousness, awakening. These types of things are a big theme where maybe there's some shakeups, maybe some truths are coming to light. Jupiter's retrograde again, so there's something about maybe unearthing injustice in the world in maybe a public way or something like that. So again, these are some of those themes for this full moon that are really big theme here over this next, over these months ahead. And the other thing I want to say is that we have the Pluto return in the United States chart, and what that is, and that occurs. The alignment is exact in February 2022, but this is something that we've been moving through for some period of time now. A Pluto return is with Pluto returning to the exact location it was when at the birthday, the birth of the country, because Pluto returns take 200 some odd years to occur. And so this isn't something that a human being experiences, but it is something that countries can experience after that period of time. And so in February 2022, Pluto's, there's the full return to the point where it was back in 1776. And this is occurring in the second house of the United States. That's the financial system. That's the value system. That's a place where the sort of stability is found and things like that. So there's some real shakeups occurring and sort of the inner foundations, I guess you'd say, of this country. And we've been moving through that for the past few years. This isn't something that will change on February 2022. We've been moving through this over the past couple of years, and I think it's something we can all feel and experience here, with all these changes we've experienced over the past couple of years. But, over these next few months, there's definitely, this continuation of change, of shakeups. And I think being flexible and being, like a tree bending with the wind and learning and growing and evolving along the way is a really big theme.
Did you just tell our listeners to go get bent? I just want to clarify this.
To go get bent? Oh, God. Yeah. I guess in a manner of speaking. Yeah. Bent with the wind.
Go ahead. I couldn't help myself.
Yeah. You're good with those puns. So, the other thing, August 25th, transiting Mercury will be opposite Neptune. Mercury will be trining Pluto. Transiting Mercury will also be opposite the U.S.'s natal Neptune. So this is a really big moment here, August 25th, where maybe it's unclear what's true, what's not true, what's the information, what's the misinformation. It's a time where, I guess, taking everything with a grain of salt is good and waiting for the details to coming in. So that's a date that I just want to point out. Mercury opposite Neptune. It's just a time where communication might be a bit vague. It might be a bit difficult. Even though there might be some strong communication at that time, this is a time where, like, headlines you might want to take with a grain of salt. It's just maybe a bit unclear as to what the truth is. So keep that in mind, August 25th.
You mean more confusedness and more confungled than it's already been?
I think that's a good point. But yes, yes.
I'm going to have to strap 2 50-pound bags of salt, one on each shoulder for that day.
Yeah,
how long is
not a bad idea.
How long is that aspect going to be active?
That's a good question. Let's see. I'd have to pull it up. I mean, one thing to also keep in mind is that in the United States chart, we're going through Neptune opposite Neptune. So there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of unclarity with some things, I guess, is possible with Neptune opposite Neptune. But let's see here. Okay. Yeah, so until let's see, that's on, is that August 29th? I hate digging these up as we go through because it's kind of hard to, let's see. Okay.
I don't want to throw you off too much.
No, it's okay. It's on August 24th or 25th is the exact, and then it will continue. It's still technically exact until the end of the month, so August 30th or so, or September 1st.
So we have 5 or 6 days where it's going to be even more confungled, confused, and misrepresented than normal.
Yeah, and
I'm going to book myself a passage to an island without internet for those 5 days, and I'll come back when the dust is settled. Go ahead.
Yeah, good call. And what's interesting is on August 29th, which is right in the middle of that, we have the sun squaring the north and south node. And when this occurs, there's basically opportunities to make new decisions. The sun will be in Virgo, so again, this is, of self-improvement, improving things, digging through the details, discernment, all those different things. With sun squaring the north and south node on August 29th, it's, we all sort of have the opportunity in our individual lives, the sun, to, make new choices with regards to our daily routine, with our daily lives. So, again, this is just something to keep in mind. And, making each and every day where we have the opportunities to make healthy and new choices. And August 29th, that's just something to keep in mind, to be willing to make new choices at times where it's relevant for you in your own life.
So you mean on that day, with all of the confungled going on around, that people who have chosen to drink the Kool-Aid, display the worst values of what it means to be an American, may make a different choice and actually decide that they're going to think for themselves. Oh my God, it would be a miracle. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I think the bottom line is that we all have, confusion in our own lives, and we're all, so, in some way, it applies to all of us, of course, in our own, in our own daily routines, and, parting the veils a bit, and really putting the nose against the grindstone. It's a great day to make new choices in ways that are suitable for each person individually. And then, so the final thing is there's a new moon in Virgo on September 7th. New moons are about new beginnings, and it's in the sign as Virgo again. So again, it's, learning to be of service, helping, fixing what isn't working, discerning, inspecting, focusing on the details, focusing on the daily routine, creating health in your life, and sacrificing ego concerns so that we are each useful in life in the way that resonates with oneself. And, there's a lot of energies here. Venus is squaring Pluto at this time. Venus is trining Jupiter. Mars is trining Pluto. Basically what this is saying is, maybe there's some uprooting of what doesn't work perhaps in relationship or in relationship with yourself, relationship with others. Maybe there's some old things that aren't working. So it's just a time to make new choices, to move forward in a healthy way that is supportive for each one of us individually. And new beginnings is the theme with each new moon. So
we're going to in that new moon. It's about putting aside your ego, doing really be of practical service, and doing what's best for humanity, best for the world, so to speak. Now, you said that, what day was that?
Yeah, that's on September 7th. September 7th.
So I guess that's the day that Washington, D.C. is going to close down for the day because they can't meet any of those criteria. They might as well just go on vacation. Anyway, sorry, I can't help myself. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's it. That's it. You know, I think there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of shakeups, a lot of freedom, a lot of wakening up from old patterns that are no longer serving us individually. And it's a time to, you know, with that new moon, time to make, you know, new changes in your daily routine, new ways of bringing health and healing in your life, you know, new daily routine that is supportive.
And look at how perfect that timing was. Thank you so much, Rob Stewart from InnerCenter.org, for another fabulous planetary influence. Rob, I will be talking to you next month as we move from Virgo into Libra, and I will be talking to the rest of you guys next week. Thanks so much, Rob.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Kevin. Thanks for having me on.